This happened last summer. I was 35 and wanted to take some photographs for my travel blog. I thought the beach boardwalk would be perfect for the vibrant sunsets and energy. The atmosphere was cheerful when I arrived. I could smell the salt from the ocean and hear laughter all around. I set up my camera, thinking it would be a relaxing weekend. While I fiddled with my settings, I overheard a woman at a nearby booth. She was whispering about a missing person. I glanced up, and she looked worried. I thought it was probably just typical beach gossip. So, I ignored it and focused on my photography. Later that evening, while capturing the sunset, I couldn't shake the feeling of tension lingering in the air. The next night, I returned. The crowd was still lively, but something felt off. I noticed people who stared blankly into the distance. It was uncomfortable, no one seemed to move. A little boy was giggling, but he had no one playing with him. I felt cold as I watched, my heart racing. Something wasn't right here. A group of teenagers caught my eye. They kept looking back at me as I walked by, whispering among themselves. I started to feel anxious. I could hear them laughing, but their eyes were wide and glazed over, almost like they were in a trance. I couldn't understand what they were looking at, but I wished I hadn't come back. When I made my way to my car, I realized I hadn't seen the woman talking about the missing person again. I tried to remember her face. I wondered if she might have been connected to the boy or the teenagers. Maybe they all had something in common, but I wasn't sure. It actually felt like a weight in my chest. I decided to ask some locals about the missing person case, hoping to find some answers. The responses were odd. They looked at me like I was crazy for asking. "You must have heard wrong," one man said. "There's no one missing." I got the sense they were hiding something. The laughter, the crowd, it all felt like a front. I walked along the boardwalk, trying to find clues. Then I saw a flash of movement in the corner of my eye. I turned quickly, but it was just a group of people in the distance. I started to feel jumpy. Was I just imagining things? As I walked, I found old photographs on the ground. I picked one up. It showed the missing woman, but there was no date. I felt icy fingers wrap around my spine. Suddenly, I looked around. People had fallen silent. Every single one of them was staring at me. I felt the hairs on my neck stand up. Then I heard a voice behind me say, "Why are you looking for her?" I turned around. There was no one there. Something inside me twisted. I didn't know what to do. I just started walking away, but their eyes followed me, heavy and unsettling. The boardwalk felt like a trap. Laughter echoed around me, but it felt wrong. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting just out of sight. I glanced back one last time. They were still watching. All of them. What did they know? Would I ever find out? The next morning, I woke up with a sense of dread. I kept replaying last night's events in my mind. Why had everyone stared at me? What secrets were they hiding? I couldn't shake the image of the woman's worried face from my thoughts. I decided to go back to the boardwalk. Maybe I could gather some more information. As I drove toward the beach, I felt a knot in my stomach. The bright sun and cheerful surroundings clashed violently with my growing anxiety. When I stepped out of my car, the air felt heavy. The laughter and chatter were there, but now they seemed distant, like a radio playing in another room. I walked up to a hot dog stand to grab a bite. The vendor, a middle-aged man with an unshaven face, looked at me like I was an unwanted guest. "What can I get for you?" he asked, his tone flat. I ordered a dog, but I couldn't bring myself to eat it. I leaned against the counter and decided to ask him about the missing woman. "Hey, have you heard anything about someone going missing around here?" I asked, forcing a casual tone. He stopped, raised an eyebrow, and scanned the beach as if ensuring no one was listening. "People come and go," he finally said, shrugging. "You won't find any answers here." His words sent a chill through me. "But what about that woman?" I saw a picture of her. His expression changed. For a moment, he looked vulnerable, almost human. But then he turned rigid again like a statue. "I don't know what you mean. Stop asking questions and just enjoy your day." Feeling the weight of his gaze, I stepped away. Something in his eyes urged me to leave, to forget about everything. But my curiosity was relentless. As I wandered away, I spotted a small girl sitting alone on the edge of the boardwalk, clutching a doll. She looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes, and I couldn't help but approach her. "Are you okay?" I asked, kneeling beside her. "Where's your mom or dad?" "They're coming," she replied, but her voice lacked assurance. I noticed the doll was worn, its fabric frayed as if it had seen years of love. "Do you know a woman?" The girl nodded. "She's not coming back." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, her gaze shot past me. I turned instinctively, and everything around us seemed to slow. I saw a figure lingering at the edge of the crowd, cloaked in shadow. A lanky man with a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes stood watching. I felt an instinctual surge of fear. "Who is he?" I asked the girl, but she just stood up and backed away, clutching her doll tighter. "He's bad," she whispered before darting off, disappearing into the throngs of people. I felt paralyzed. I turned back to the man, but he was gone. I looked around, trying to spot the girl, but she was lost in a sea of laughter that felt more sinister than before. Then it hit me. The woman, the girl, the man, everything felt like a puzzle I couldn't piece together. I turned, scanning the area for answers, and that's when I saw something glinting on the ground. I crouched down and picked it up. It was a charm bracelet, the same one I had seen in the photograph of the missing woman. I felt my heart race as I cradled it in my hand. What was happening here? I had to find out more. I couldn't walk away now. But as I stood, I noticed the crowd had grown thicker, pressing in around me, their laughter now echoing like a warning bell. Suddenly, I felt trapped again. I needed an escape route, but they were everywhere, their eyes watching with an unsettling interest. I took a breath and started to push my way through, desperate to get away, but someone reached out and grabbed my arm. I turned to face the person who had a hold on my arm. It was a woman, her face pale and drawn. She had curly hair that bounced around her shoulders, but her eyes were haunted. "You need to go," she whispered urgently. "Now." "Why? What's happening?" I stammered, trying to gauge her intentions. The crowd buzzed around us, laughter mingling with the sounds of waves crashing against the shore. "Just trust me," she insisted, her grip tightening as if she feared I might bolt. "They're watching." I wasn't sure who she meant by they, but the way her eyes darted around made my skin prickle. "Who are they?" Before she could answer, a sharp voice broke through the din. "Lucy. Let her go." It was the man in the baseball cap, now approaching us with a menacing stride. The woman's face drained of color, and she released me instantly. "Run," she whispered. And I didn't need to be told twice. My instincts kicked in, and I pushed past the crowd, weaving through distracted beachgoers. As I ducked between bodies, I could feel the weight of eyes on my back, pressing down hard. I glanced back once, and to my horror, the man was in pursuit, long legs eating up the space between us. I picked up speed, panic igniting my veins. My heart raced as I spotted the pier extending over the water. Maybe I can lose him there, I thought. I sprinted toward it. The wooden slats creaked beneath my feet as I ran, the sound amplified by my quickening breath. I risked another look back. The man was still coming, his baseball cap bobbing with each determined step. I had no choice, I had to keep going. Reaching the end of the pier, I skidded to a stop, scanning for options. I could dive into the water, or perhaps hide behind the thick poles supporting the structure. But before I could decide, I was met with another shock. A figure emerged from the shadows behind me. It was the little girl from earlier, the one with the doll. "Stop," she said, fear etched on her face. "He'll find you." "Who?" I pleaded, desperate. "Who will find me?" She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward a gap between two pillars. I hesitated, glancing back at the approaching man. He was close now, his intent clear. "Please," the girl urged. "He wants to take you." That phrase resonated in my mind like a jarring chord. "Take me?" I echoed, feeling dizzy. The girl nodded, frantic. "I found something," she said, her voice shaky, "and he wants it back." I had no idea what she meant, but the urgency in her expression drove me to follow her. As we hid, my heart pounded in my chest, each thud a reminder that danger was only a breath away. Then everything went quiet. I turned to the girl, my voice just above a whisper. "What did you find?" Just then, we heard footsteps approaching, steady and deliberate. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt frozen as a shadow fell over us. "Where did you go?" The man called, his voice smooth, but it only served to increase the dread hidden deep in my gut. I knew I had to act fast. But before I could voice my questions, the girl pulled out something tiny from her pocket, an object glinting in the light. That's when my world tilted sideways. It was a charm. The same charm from the bracelet. "What did you do?" I gasped. She turned to me, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't know. But now he knows we're here." My body went cold, and as I glanced back, the dark figure of the man loomed closer, searching. The moment the man's shadow fell over us, instinct took over. The little girl clutched the charm tightly, and I could see her small fingers trembling. "We have to stay quiet," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The man leaned closer, peering around the pillar we hid behind. I held my breath, listening to the sound of my own heartbeat. The air felt thick, as if time had slowed down just for him to find us. His eyes scanned the pier, sharp and determined. "I know you're here," he called out, the menace in his voice curling around my spine like a vine. I wanted to scream back, to tell him we weren't afraid. But another part of me knew that provoking him would only escalate this nightmare. The girl squeezed my hand harder. "He knows things," she said, her voice shaking. "Bad things." Suddenly, I felt the charm grow warmer against my skin. It pulsed with a strange energy, and I realized it was somehow connected to this man. Was it a warning, or something more? "I'll give you one last chance," he warned, his tone cold. "Hand it over, and I might let you go." The girl's eyes grew wider with fear. "No. He can't have it." I shared her sentiment but didn't know what to do. I looked around for a way out. Behind us lay the vast blue expanse of the ocean, and the thought of jumping in was tempting. But I didn't want to leave this girl to face him alone. I nodded to her. "If he comes this way, we jump." Her gaze widened, but then she nodded in agreement. We were about to make a choice that could change everything. Just as we braced ourselves for the leap, the man moved around the pillar. He stepped closer, his expression twisting in annoyance. "You think you can hide from me? You have something I want." My heart raced, adrenaline surging through my veins. This was it. I had to stand my ground. "What do you want with her?" He paused, confusion flickering across his face. "You don't even know, do you?" His voice dropped lower, almost taunting. "It's hers by right. She's the one who found it." He was talking about the charm. I felt a chill. What was its significance? As I tried to piece it together, the girl's small voice broke through my thoughts. Please, don't hurt us. Hurt you? He laughed, but it was devoid of humor. I wouldn't have to if you just return what's mine. I clenched my teeth, frustration boiling within me. How could I protect her? A weight settled on my chest. I needed answers, but how could I get them without putting myself in more danger? Then the pier swayed slightly beneath our feet. I looked down and noticed the water bubbling beneath the posts. Something was brewing beneath the surface. It couldn't be just the tide. Look! I exclaimed, pointing. The man turned his gaze, and in that split second, I grabbed the girl's hand. Now! We ran together, charging towards the end of the pier. But as we neared the edge, a shadow loomed beneath the water, something dark and massive shifting closer to us. I couldn't believe my eyes. What is that? The girl gasped. It's coming for the charm. All at once, I felt the charm in my pocket start to vibrate. The dock shook violently, and a wave crashed against the supports. Fear gripped me, and I knew there was no turning back. We had unleashed something far beyond what the man had wanted. The deeper questions crept in. What had the girl really found, and why was it so important? I grabbed her hand tighter and steeled myself. We would have to face whatever was lurking below. Together, we rushed to the edge, ready to confront the unknown. As we reached the edge of the pier, dread gnawed at my insides. The dark shape beneath the water surged upwards, breaking the surface in a splash that soaked us both. I instinctively tucked the girl against my side, shielding her from the spray. What is it? I whispered, trying to control my racing heart. The girl looked up at me, her eyes wide with terror. I don't know. She gasped. But it wants the charm. The creature emerged fully, glistening like scales in the fading light. It wasn't just one shadow but a mass of intertwined limbs and glimmering eyes that peered right at us. My breath caught in my throat. This was no ordinary sea creature. The man, still standing by the pillar, had a crazed expression on his face, half anger, half exhilaration. You've awakened it. He shouted, almost gleeful. Now you'll see what happens when you defy me. Instinct took over once again. I stepped back from the edge, pulling the girl along with me. The creature seemed agitated, thrashing in the water. Waves crashed against the pier, shaking the planks under our feet. What do we do? I asked, panic edging my voice. Keep the charm safe. She cried, panic rising too. The charm in my pocket throbbed again, as if responding to the chaos around us. I couldn't understand how something so small could hold such power, but it felt alive, almost like it had a will of its own. Suddenly, the man roared. I won't let you escape. He lunged forward, but the creature beneath us thrashed again, sending a spray of seawater around him. He stumbled back, momentarily distracted. That was our chance. Run! I shouted, pulling the girl with me farther down the pier toward a cluster of fishing crates. Our feet splashed through puddles, and I could hear the man cursing behind us, followed by the chaotic sounds of the creature thrashing. We ducked behind the crates, hiding in the shadows. I leaned down to the girl. Is there anywhere we can go? A way to lose him? She shook her head, her face pale. The boat. Daddy's boat. Where is it? I asked, anxiety clawing at my throat. Down at the end of the pier. She pointed, her small fingers trembling. I took a moment to breathe, feeling the charm warm again in my pocket. Could it protect us? Should we use it? Before I could decide, a loud crash echoed from our left, and I turned just in time to see the man reach the end of our hiding spot. You think you can escape? He sneered. Instinct just didn't seem to have a place for fear at that moment. I grabbed the girl's hand and darted toward the boat at the far end of the pier. We could do this, I told myself over and over. The charm might be our key. But as we approached the boat, the water surged violently again. The creature shot from the depths, revealing its full terrifying form. A chilling realization hit me. It wasn't just after the charm, it was after us. Go! I yelled, pushing the girl ahead of me as I braced myself against the onslaught. I wanted to protect her, but this was turning into something far more dangerous than I ever could have imagined. Then everything changed. The charm pulsed one last time, and in that moment, a sudden wave of energy enveloped us. I glanced down, and that's when I saw a bright light emanating from the charm, something I hadn't noticed before. Keep moving, I commanded. The light intensified, illuminating the pier, and I realized what was coming next. A choice was about to be made, one that could either save us or draw us deeper into this nightmare. And before I could grasp what was happening, we were both pulled towards the edge of the pier, the creature and the man both forgotten for just a fleeting moment. Just as we felt the pull at the edge of the pier, the creature below let out a deafening roar that rattled my bones. The sound echoed around us, filling the air with a guttural resonance that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. I struggled to keep my feet as the light surged outward, blinding me momentarily. Then, against the chaos, I felt it. A strange weightlessness took over, and it was as if the world around us slowed. Without warning, the light enveloped us entirely. It warmed my skin, and I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, contrasting sharply with the fear bubbling just beneath the surface. I squeezed the girl's hand harder, knowing we had to stick together. You feel that? I asked, though it was more to reassure myself than her. She nodded, her eyes wide. The charm, it's magic. Magic wasn't a concept I entertained before tonight. But in that moment, as the chaos of the pier faded into a distant memory, something shifted. The creature's roar was replaced by a melody coursing through the air, resonating deep within me. Before I could process what was happening, the world around us flickered. I blinked, and in the next instant, we stood on another pier, one that felt ancient and surreal. The planks were worn, and the air was thick with a salty mist that smelled alive. Where are we? I asked, searching for familiar landmarks, but there was nothing. This place felt like a dream, like I had stepped through a portal into the unknown. I don't know. But we have to go back. The girl cried, pulling on my arm, her voice high with panic. But then I realized something loomed in the water before us. The creature was still there, its eyes glinting with an unsettling intelligence. It was staring right at us, gliding through the water like a shadow. No! I shouted, backing away instinctively. The charm throbbed in my pocket, sending waves of energy racing through me. We can't stay here. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the mist, walking toward us across the water. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The man from the pier. But he looked different, haggard, distant, and impossibly old. Stop! He bellowed. You can't escape what you've awakened. His words sent a shiver down my spine. The girl cowered against me, her small frame trembling. What does he mean? She whispered. I don't know, I replied, my voice low. There was urgency in the air, but I had no idea how to navigate this bizarre situation. The charm felt alive, pulsing with energy, like it could lead us back or perhaps trap us forever. As the man continued to approach, the water behind him began to churn violently. The creature was no longer just an observer, it was preparing for something. The atmosphere shifted, and I felt the weight of an inevitable confrontation pressing down on us. Think. I urged myself. There had to be a way out. But as I glanced at the girl, her fear mirrored mine. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed an old fishing net abandoned at the edge of the pier. Over there! I shouted. We can use it. She looked where I pointed, still trembling, but the fear in her eyes was matched by a flicker of hope. I took off toward the net, adrenaline flooding my veins, every instinct telling me we needed to get ready. As I knelt to grab the net, I heard the man's laughter that echoed across the water. "You think you can fight it? You'll only make it angrier." His words were a warning, but they ignited a fire in my chest. I couldn't let fear paralyze me any longer. I pulled the net tightly and turned back toward the girl, just in time to see the creature break the surface, its massive form lunging forward. Everything around me went dark. When the darkness lifted, I found myself on the same pier, but everything felt different, distorted. The salty mist clung to my face, making it hard to breathe. The creature was gone, but that unsettling silence had returned, pressing down on me. "Where is it?" the girl whispered, her voice trembling again. I could see her fear, raw and unfiltered. "I don't know," I responded, scanning the water. My heart raced. That moment of calm was replaced by a tight anxiety that gnawed at my insides. I turned back toward the man. He stood there, a shadow against the light, watching us with a mix of pity and amusement. "What now?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "The way back is closed," he said slowly. "You'll have to face the creature you awakened." His gaze sharpened. "And it won't come alone." A chill ran down my spine. I didn't want to think about what that meant. The charm in my pocket throbbed as if it could sense my escalating panic. Suddenly, the air shifted again, the tension thickening around us. Then I saw them. Shadows emerging from the water, dark shapes darting beneath the surface. They moved in rhythm, gliding through the waves like a school of fish, but I knew these weren't ordinary sea creatures. They were smaller than the creature we had encountered, but their eyes glowed faintly in the murky water. "What are those?" the girl asked, her voice trembling again as she clutched my arm. I don't know," I stammered, stepping back. Their movements grew more erratic, and I could feel their gaze piercing through the water, locking onto us. I realized the man was grinning, as if he were waiting for this moment. "Didn't you understand?" he taunted. "You've disturbed an entire realm. They're drawn to you now." Before I could ask him more, one of the small creatures broke the surface, its form shifting from two-dimensional to three. It was covered in scales that shimmered under the dim light, and its eyes were hollow. I felt bile rise in my throat. I took a step back but was quickly reminded of the pier's edge behind me. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing the girl's hand again. Panic surged through me with every step, and I pulled her along as I glanced back. The shadowy creatures launched from the water, fangs bared. "Why is this happening?" she shouted over the sound of splashing water. "I don't know," I yelled. We raced toward the abandoned net. It felt ridiculous, but it was all I had. I yanked at the net desperately and threw it over the smallest creature as it lunged towards us. It tangled in the thick mesh, squealing in a guttural tone that sent shockwaves through my body. For a second, it paused, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction. But the other creatures didn't relent. They charged at us, moving with a terrifying speed. The man watched, his laughter echoing in the mist. "You can't defeat them with mere nets. They are the echoes of your fears." "What does that even mean?" I shouted, just as the slippery shapes reached us. In that moment, reality twisted again. A flash of blinding light shattered the scene, and then everything went still. That's when I noticed the faint whispers rising from the shadows. They were forming words, beckoning me closer, urging me to listen. But all I could think of was survival, and the taste of dread that filled my mouth. I turned sharply, ready to face whatever came next. I was frozen, caught between the whispers and the encroaching creatures. Was this moment a trick of the mind? I wanted to believe that if I just stayed still, they wouldn't see me. But the girl tugged on my arm, pulling me back to reality. "Let us go." she urged, her fear a palpable force. I wanted to explain the whispers, the urgency behind them. But I couldn't find the words. Instead, we bolted away from the pier's edge, the dark figures still pushing forward. The laughter from the man echoed behind us, growing fainter with distance but somehow still haunting. The air grew thicker. Each breath was like drawing in water, heavy and hard. We stumbled off the pier, our feet crashing onto solid ground. But the shoreline felt foreign, as if the entire place had shifted while we were distracted. Where do we go? We can't just run, she panted. Maybe the lighthouse? I suggested, pointing toward a shadowy structure in the distance. It loomed like a guardian, though I wasn't sure if it was a haven or another trap. We sprinted toward it, my pulse pounding like a drum. As we got closer, I caught sight of shards of glass scattered on the ground, remnants of what used to be windows. The lighthouse stood tall but dilapidated, looking just as lost as we felt. Then came the sounds, a soft rustling mixed with muffled cries. I hesitated, but the girl pushed open the heavy door. The creak reverberated loudly, and dread trickled down my spine. Inside, darkness swallowed us. I could barely make out the outlines of shelves lined with dusty old books, their covers tattered and forgotten. I reached out to steady myself and knocked something over. A little lamp flickered to life in the corner, casting a weak glow that felt like a lifeline. "No one else here," the girl whispered, her voice trembling. "Maybe that's a good thing?" I offered, though it didn't help ease the knot tightening in my stomach. As I scanned the room, unease crept back in. Something was off. I could almost hear the whispers again, softer this time, like a breeze stirring the pages of the fallen books. "What do they want?" I murmured, more to myself than to her. Just as I voiced my confusion, a thudding sound echoed from above us. Something heavy had shifted, or had it always been there? I felt the girl's grip tighten on my arm, and I knew we were both thinking the same thing. "What was that?" She barely managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, but we can't stay here." I turned toward the staircase, leading up into the unknown. The heavy air felt charged, pulsing with anticipation. We had no plan, but as the noise grew louder, it became clear that our only choice was to move upward. I hesitated one more time, glancing back at the entrance. The way we had come felt like a breach into something much more frightening. Then, the whispers turned into guttural growls, the shadows coiling in on themselves, and I realized it was too late to turn back. "We need to go, now," I urged, racing up the stairs, the girl right behind me. As we climbed, the growls grew closer, blending with the frantic rhythm of my heart. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone, that whatever had awakened was hunting us. Then I saw the top of the staircase, a trapdoor waiting to be pushed open. I paused for a split second before shoving it aside. What awaited us beyond that door could either be salvation or our doom. But as I reached for the handle, a sinister whisper echoed behind me. "Don't leave yet." The door creaked open, and I flung myself through, pulling the girl along. We stumbled into a small room illuminated by the faint glow of the lighthouse lens. The circular space was littered with old fishing gear and newspapers yellowed with age. Dust motes danced in the light, giving the eerie sense that we were being watched. I turned, ready to push the door shut, but before I could, I caught a glimpse of a figure lingering in the shadow of the doorway. The dim light made it hard to see clearly, but there was something familiar about the shape. It was a slender figure, deliberate and still like a statue. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. The girl clutched my arm tighter, pressing herself against me. "Can you see me?" The figure asked, its voice warped, echoing like a ghost trapped in memory. "What do you mean?" I shot back, unease washing over me. "What are you doing here?" "I'm waiting," it whispered, and I could now see its face, the very features washed away like chalk on an old blackboard. I swallowed hard. "Waiting for you." Us? My companion asked, her voice trembling. It's not safe outside, the figure continued, stepping forward into the pale light. I could make out a worn coat that hung awkwardly on its frail frame. They are coming. Who? I pressed, my heart racing again. The shadows beyond the door seemed deeper, waiting patiently for our next move. The figure's eyes shifted, darting to the door, and I felt an unsettling shiver run through me. Things that listen. Things that follow. They want you. It leaned in closer, and in that moment, I recognized its eyes. They were filled with an emptiness that haunted every corner of my mind. No, I denied, shaking my head. I don't understand. We don't want any trouble. I backed away slightly, pulling the girl with me. But she didn't seem to want to move. She was staring at the figure as if it held the answers to questions we hadn't even thought to ask. They will find you, even in the light, it whispered ominously, as more thuds echoed from the stairs, reverberating through the stone walls. The girl's expression twisted with fear, and I felt the need to act, to protect her from whatever was haunting us. Let us go. I urged her, but she hesitated. What if we're meant to hear this? She murmured, her curiosity wrestling against fear. Now is not the time for that. I hissed, pulling her toward the door, but the figure stepped closer. If you stay, you might learn how to escape, it said. But before I could react, the door behind us slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls. Everything felt stifling. I desperately tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. My breath quickened as panic surged. What did you do? I shouted, turning to the figure, but it was already fading back into the shadows. Find the one who knows, it said softly, just as the growls swelled into a chorus of furious howls outside the door. Who? I yelled, my voice rising above the chaos. Nothing answered. Then the whispers returned, rising to a deafening crescendo. I felt bile rise in my throat as the shadows pushed deeper, swirling and crashing against the door. Just as I turned to face my only path, a familiar face from the mist of my memory appeared, a haunting reminder of what I could lose if I stayed. Don't leave, it echoed. But there was no time. Whatever would come next was closing in fast, and I had a choice to make. Come on. I grabbed the girl's hand, and together we raced toward the window. Then everything went dark. When the darkness lifted, I found myself alone in a small, dimly lit room, like I had been transported into a forgotten corner of someone else's mind. I blinked rapidly, hoping desperately that I would see the girl beside me. The air felt heavy, thick with whispers and echoes that clung to the corners like dust. I stood up, my heart pounding as I called her name, but only silence answered. Panic started to creep in. Where are you? I shouted, my voice cracking as it bounced off the walls. As I took a step forward, the old wooden floor creaked beneath me, sending shivers of anxiety curling up my spine. Eventually, the sound of water reached my ears, a steady lapping, like waves gently brushing ashore. I moved cautiously toward the source, finding a door ajar, leading out into another hallway lit by flickering lamps. Despite the unsettling ambience, curiosity nudged me forward. Peering through the doorway, I found myself on an old pier, eerily reminiscent of the one from before. The water shimmered under a crescent moon while the smell of salt lingered in the air. Yet, this place felt different, less inviting, more otherworldly. Lucy! I called, my voice breaking through the stillness. Nothing. I felt my breath hitch as shadows danced along the periphery, creatures lurking just out of view. Heart pounding, I stepped back into the hallway, fighting off the dread. Had I lost her for good? Then a memory surged unbidden, a small girl's fearful eyes and the feel of her hand in mine, the whispers in the lighthouse warning of things to come. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on the connection we had, the energy of that strange charm pulsing in my pocket. What did it mean, and where was I meant to go? As if the universe answered, the whispers intensified, swirling around me like a tempest. They reached my ears in soft tugs, forming phrases, entwining into meaning. "Find her," they coaxed, beckoning me toward the edge of the pier. With a desperate hope flaring inside me, I raced to the edge. The water below was dark, swirling with unseen depths, but there was something else, faint shadows shifting beneath. I squinted, peering closer until an outline began to form, long and serpentine. "Lucy!" I shouted again, my voice drowning in the abyss. Suddenly, from the depths, a familiar figure emerged, and my heart dropped. The girl came into view, standing at the water's edge, her small body silhouetted against the shimmering tide. "Lucy!" I cried, relief flooding through me. "I thought I lost you." But she didn't respond, just gazed out across the water, her features somehow unrecognizable, her face caught in a trance. "They're waiting," she finally said, her voice strangely distant, as if she were speaking from behind a veil of mist. "Who's waiting?" I rushed toward her, desperate to pull her back from whatever grip had held her captive. "The ones who whisper," she murmured, her eyes not leaving the surface of the water. "They see everything, they want you to listen." Terror gripped me again. My heart thundered, and I reached for her shoulder, shaking her lightly. "Look at me, Lucy. We need to leave." In that instant, the whispers escalated, a cacophony of voices layered and merged around us, a chaotic symphony surging from the depths. I couldn't make sense of any of it. "You have to wake up," I insisted, each word breaking through layers of dread like sunlight piercing through clouds. She blinked as if suddenly freed from a spell, shaking her head frantically. "The charm, it calls to them. They want it back." I clutched my pocket, feeling its warmth pulse with renewed urgency. "Then we won't let them take it," I declared, taking her hand again. "We'll figure this out together." As I turned to lead her away, the waters erupted, a massive shadow surged upward, monstrous arms cradling the face of something unspeakable. It broke the surface, eyes glinting with a strange knowing as it roared above us, sending shockwaves across the pier. The echoes of its presence reminded me of a truth I still didn't fully grasp: whatever had come to life below, it was real and far more powerful than I could have imagined. "Run!" I shouted, pulling Lucy away from the edge as terror took over. We sprinted back along the pier, the wood creaking beneath our feet like a warning of its impending collapse. "I don't want to lose it," she cried, glancing back at the creature still emerging, the charms of shadows coiling with every monstrous throb. The roar vibrated through me, strumming every nerve. Nearby, I noticed the structure of the lighthouse looming closer again, reminiscent of a sanctuary, a refuge from whatever hunted us. "In there," I urged, pointing toward the lighthouse. We darted inside, slamming the door shut behind us, gasping as we leaned against the frame. The light flickered weakly, whispering stories of time lost in a storm. Lucy's eyes wide with fear, she pulled the charm from her pocket and held it up. It glowed ardently. "What do we do now?" I shook my head. "I don't know, but we face it together this time." I took her hand, feeling the warmth of the charm pulse between us, and stepped back toward the door. But before we could strategize our next move, the door creaked ominously, rattling against the frames. The menacing growls from outside echoed, thick with darkness, reminding me of our heartbeat racing in sync with the moments ticking away. The shadows murmured against the door, a whispered promise of chaos and fear. "Whatever comes next, we stand our ground," I said firmly, bracing myself for what awaited as I flung open the door. The world outside felt vast, the pier stretched out before us, tainted by the shadow of the hunter rising from the water, its form looming ever closer. The echoes of terror and whispered promises swirled, confounding my senses. "Let us go!" I yelled, my voice rising against the arms of fate as we burst out into the unknown. With uncertainty and courage hand in hand, we charged toward the edge of both our fears and the shimmering surface of the water, ready to challenge whatever awaited us beyond the veil of the abyss. Looking back only once, I took a breath and plunged into the chaos together, knowing the answers might still lie out of reach but our fight had only just begun.